Good.
All right, what's going on, everybody? This is Dr. Schilling from Sequoia Health bringing this week's Wednesday Wellness Minutes. And this week we're going to talk about bone loss. A word that most people know of is osteoporosis or osteopenia, which is the fancy one, but frankly, Facebook, if you put a condition on there, they don't like that so much. So we focus on bone loss, which is really the end result of what's going on. Osteoporosis is just a diagnosis they slap on your chest and say, hi, my name is osteoporosis. This affects a lot of people. There's a lot of points to this. I had a really hard time boiling it down to digestible bits and pieces. So I'm going to do my very best to be concise and give it to you in small bits and pieces that are easy to understand. But first of all, you want to understand when people have bone loss, one of the first things people think of is hip fractures. I mean, bone fractures are one thing, but hip fractures, especially when you get into the twilight of your life and people are falling and things like that and cracking their hips. The average cost of a hip surgery, hip replacement surgery, is about $40,000. And that's probably on the low end these days, given the rates that hospitals are charging. But 1 in 3 women over the age of 50 is suffering from some type of osteoporosis. Now that's a pretty staggering statistic given there's 330 million people in this country. So I believe at least half of them are women, and given the declining rates of men, there's probably even more than half at this point. So you want to consider that as a good portion of, so it's 156.5 million people, if you want to get exact. 44 million people in the U.S. have osteoporosis at a big diagnosed each year. 55% of the population, in other words, like we just mentioned, but 55 years and older are the biggest people that are being affected by it, usually because all the junk that they've consumed and things that happened in their life have caught up to them. But 70 million people in America are at risk without even calculating the rest of who's already having it. But most of the time, if you go to a medical doctor, they're going to say, well, you have some bone loss. We see on your DEXA scan that your bones are getting thin or brittle. Whether you're osteoporotic or osteopenic, they're going to tell you to go on Fosamax as one of the major drugs. But the problem is they might show some indication of decreased bone loss, but you're not generating any new bone. And after a year, there's really no change. And after 5 years, people that have been on it for that long, it's actually showing detrimental effects after only 2 years. So you really want to be aware of the side effects of these medications and that you just can't take them blankly without expecting there to be no issues. So let's focus on some myths about bone loss. These are pretty intriguing. But of course, everybody has heard them because if you have watched any television commercials lately and you hear the "Got Milk" slogan, they think that drink your milk and you'll get the calcium from milk, and that will help you because calcium is the only reason why you have bone loss and you might have osteopenia or osteoporotic bones. Not the case. Then myth number 1. Myth number 2 is that it doesn't hit you until after you're in your 50s. That is absolutely inaccurate. We'll get to that in a minute. Bone loss after 30 is normal. That's absolutely crazy. And that you cannot increase your bone mass once you pass the age of 30. If that's the case, we'd all be crumbled bags of bones, if that were the case. And then, of course, as we just mentioned, our slogan of "Got Milk," dairy products are the only place to get calcium or the best place. I get a ton of calcium from my cheese and my milk and my yogurt and all my dairy products. So let's get to some truths about osteoporosis or bone loss, if you will. Bone loss can start as early as 20 or 30s. In fact, I'm quite certain at this day and age, with as sick as people are, it's probably starting in their teens. But they're not measuring it. They're not paying attention to it because they're like, well, nobody in their teens would have bone loss. But if you're eating a junk food, standard American diet, the SAD diet, you're probably going to have some bone loss. You can build bone into your 80s. In fact, I would say, as long as you're alive, you can restructure your skeleton and restructure your bones. You can do that by resistance training and things like that, but there's no physiologic reason why you shouldn't be able to create more bone in your body. If you're stressing your frame, your skeleton, you're going to be able to create more bone, provided you have the nutrients to build that bone. So you have a strong tapestry, you stress it, and then you have the building of new bones. Physical exercise is the best way to build bone. When you stress your skeleton with resistance training, i.e. increasing more stress on your skeleton than just gravity's applying, that's resistance training. That's really important. Interestingly enough, studies have shown in industrialized nations where they consume the most milk and dairy products, they have the highest levels and the highest rates of osteopenia and osteoporosis. So don't get your milk. How about that? First book I ever came across, I think I was in my teens, it was Don't Drink Your Milk. And that was when I was trying to get off my asthma medications, trying to figure out what was going on there. But it's pretty staggering to learn about the impacts of how dairy products can affect your body. The interesting part about that is only about 30% of calcium is actually absorbable from dairy products. And the problem is it comes with a lot of hormones and a lot of antibiotics and a lot of other stuff that comes in that's not good for your body. So you want to really consider that if you eat broccoli and Brussels sprouts and kale and other leafy greens, which can be prepared very deliciously if you look at Pinterest for recipes or check our food blog and stuff like that, what you want to understand is they can be prepared in a very delicious manner that gives your body the nutrients, and you're going to be able to absorb 40 to 65% depending on what you're eating, which is way more effective than a toxic cup of milk or bowl of cereal or something like that. Proper diet of leafy greens is absolutely essential for building your bones. You can't beat it. One thing you always want to understand is that we don't get enough plant proteins. One of the great American pastimes is eating meat. Like meat is our favorite vegetable. And the problem is a lot of that meat, a lot of animal cooked meat is acidic, and that can cause up to 44 times more phosphorus to come into our bodies than would be ingested when we're eating plant proteins. So prioritize plant proteins over animal proteins. I try to personally, if I had every choice every day, I would only have meat at one meal out of 3. Okay, so it's really decrease that level. But for every 50 grams of protein, this is a pretty interesting statistic, you're going to lose about 60 milligrams of calcium from your body, because your body has to mobilize calcium to what's called buffer this acid in your body. So when protein comes in, it creates a little bit of fire. So your body says, we need some fire retardant, takes some calcium off the bone, sprinkles it on that fire, and that fire goes out. So that's a very big challenge. People want to know, how do I test my bone strength? What am I doing as far as monitoring my bone density and stuff like that? Everybody thinks DEXA is the gold standard, if you will, but that's ionizing radiation, and that's going to cause some damage to your system, and it's going to cause more free radicals to come in. Your liver's got to detoxify those and all that kind of nonsense. But there are very simple ways to do it. You can monitor your first morning urine pH. You want it to be between 6.04 and 7.0. That's a really good way to monitor your mineral levels, because if your minerals are low, your acidity is typically going to be high, because minerals are used to buffer acid. There's also a couple of urine tests. Deoxypyridinolone is DPD for short, is one you can use in your second morning urine, which is really good, and it doesn't involve DEXA, and it really helps you understand where your calcium levels are, as well as N-telepeptides are great, because that's another way to test in your urine, second morning urine, what your minerals volumes are like. So those are great ways to monitor and keep a good tab on that. And also, you want to understand, like, what's going to cause my bone loss? Sedentary lifestyle, underlying infections, lack of minerals, junk food diets, osteopenia is really common as far as being a culprit, like eating junk food your entire life, and that women get into their 50s or things like that, and they say, I'm osteopenic. My doctor says I'm osteopenic. I must need more calcium. I must drink more milk, or have a bottle of calcium tablets. Most people that take calcium tablets usually get constipated because of them, because it just is a blob of calcium that floats through their system. It's hardly even digestible. You need to have good balance. So infections are one of the major reasons why people have bone loss. Dental infections, bone infections, infections in joints. You can have a weakness. Let's just say we have H. pylori in the stomach and in the kidneys, and that's making your acid levels decrease, which means you're not going to be able to get as many minerals out of your food and or your supplements. So that's going to cause stress, and that's going to cause the mineral content to go down. So infections are a big problem. In rotten teeth, it's a huge issue. People who have failed root canals and things like that, it's really important to get those out. Side note, intractable weight gain, so people that gain weight and can't lose it and stuff like that, look to the teeth. That's a really good indication that you need to look there first. Like, get junk metals out of your mouth and things like that. Really helpful. If you need help testing your teeth, just come on in. We'll do that for you. You don't need to see a dentist for that, unless, of course, they do kinesiology. Then it would be a good idea to go see them. Interference fields. We talked about this a couple times ago. Interference fields are really important as far as affecting our ability to heal. So when you have injuries to the tailbone, unresolved concussions, hits to the teeth, women who've given birth, perineal tears and stuff like that, episiotomies, or the cutting that they do to release the pressure and allow the baby to come out easier, the stitching that goes into there, C-section scars, gallbladder scars, pretty much anywhere there's a scar, interference field, that can cause a decrease in your body's ability to hold on to minerals, because it's almost like a quasi-infection. Your body's losing resources from that point. So what do you do about bone loss? Okay, I jotted down just about 20 things here. I'm going to rattle through them pretty quick, because there's a ton of stuff you can do that does not involve taking Fosamax, and it doesn't involve drinking a glass of milk or eating some cheese or having some cereal. Regular resistance training. We have a video on YouTube and Facebook about exercise program I did, just to give you some ideas. So general resistance training, body weight and stuff like that, bands and stuff like that. Sedentary lifestyle equals bone loss. If you're sitting around a lot, you're not active, it's clear. Once you spend one day in bed, your body's already saying, well, we don't need those bones anymore, we don't need those minerals, we're going to take those minerals out of the bone and start decreasing that and use it for other things. So sedentary lifestyle is really important to understand. That's going to negatively affect your bones. Proper hydration. If you're dehydrated, you're going to weaken your bones. Taking antacids for heartburn and things like that, that's going to decrease your stomach acid, which is going to limit your calcium absorption. So definitely do not take antacids. If you have chronic acid reflux and things like that, you probably have a sliding hiatus hernia, hiatal hernia. That can be fixed structurally. You don't need to have surgeries done. So just as a side note, junk foods are acidic. Sodas and sugary things, heavy dairy, of course, we've mentioned. Optimizing your D3. So vitamin D3 is huge. They call it hormone D. It's really good for bones. Some people need extra K2, which is usually from leafy greens. So if you're going to take a D3 and you don't get a lot of leafy greens, you might need some K2 in there to get that mixed in there to help your body absorb it. Prioritizing plant proteins, which we mentioned before. Maximizing your fruits and vegetables, super important. You need the minerals and the vitamins in there. Balance your hormones. Stress, you got to decrease stress. All right. If stress is high, it's going to throw off your whole hormone axis, like hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis, and thyroid, and everything like that. So if your cortisol's high, it's going to throw off your blood sugars. Your blood sugars are too high, your insulin's going to get all whacked, and that's going to cause decreases in your minerals and things like that. So hormone balance is really important for bone strength. Progesterone is one of those really important ones. Let's see. Quitting smoking. If you're smoking, if you're popping a heater, a couple, 3, 4, 5, 20 times a day, you should probably quit that, because that's a quick way to lung cancer and or bone loss and or both. Caffeine. Caffeine is a diuretic. It will decrease your fluid levels, and in that process you urinate, you flush out your calcium levels, so really decrease your caffeine consumption. Coffee, 2 cups a day is increasing your risk. Some people drink 32 ounces a cup of coffee. It creates metabolic acid, which is then going to pull calcium out of your bones. Avoiding dairy products we mentioned. Remember, only 30% of calcium from milk and dairy products is absorbable. Removing metal fillings from your mouth. Metal fillings are a problem because what they do is they will decrease your cell energy, because, not to get too complex, but heavy metals in the mouth will decrease your parathyroid function, and parathormone is related to balancing your calcium and things like that, and calcitonin coming off the parathyroid, which is going to affect your thyroid. And see this cascade, it's just a domino effect. So getting all the metal out of your mouth is absolutely critical. Absolutely critical for weight loss, absolutely critical for bone metabolism, keeping strong bones. We're dialing down here. All right, consuming adequate salt. Salt is very important for hydration, keeping your adrenals strong, keeping the mineral balance there for your corticosteroids. Optimizing your digestion. If you have junky, crappy digestion, you need digestive enzymes and HCl. Hydrochloric acid, remember, balances calcium in the body, gets calcium out of the foods and things like that. Decrease your stress. We mentioned a minute ago. Increase stress. You got to calm it down. If you need a reset, call us. We'll do a QNRT reset on you. We'll get the stress down. Help you identify what to tackle in your life. Avoiding tap water. Tap water is loaded with chlorine, fluorine, antibiotics, birth control. I mean, it's just a menagerie of garbage in there. So that's going to affect your bones for sure. And avoiding phosphate foods and drinks. So sodas, hydrogenated oils, like vegetable oils that are they're hydrogenated, so they try to add a bunch of hydrogens in there to make them just taste like saturated fatty acids from animal proteins and stuff like that, but they're not good for you. Coffee, as we mentioned. Nutrients. All right, let's talk quick about nutrients. If you need to get heavy metals out of your body, heavy metal nano detox. If you need your cell energy up to maintain healthy bone metabolism, CoQ10. Coral Legend, awesome. Ionized version of calcium, natural from coral. You don't need HCl to process it, so this is great. Even if you have low acid or you have a chronic acid reflux, Coral Legend is great for that. Calcium, magnesium, potassium, you need 2 to 1 calcium, 2 calcium to 1 potassium, 1 magnesium rather, and then some potassium. Potassium is really important to manage all your bones. If you have a bone infection or jaw infection or things like that, teeth are sections of bone. So if you have a tooth infection, Osteoven is really good for that. Having healthy adrenals and healthy liver, Max B, B vitamins, N-chain fermented B vitamins. Of course, D3, as we mentioned, if you don't eat a lot of green leafy vegetables, you need the D3 with K2. Those are great to focus on. Those are just some real quick ones I could yank down here real fast to give you an idea of what would be helpful for you. But that's really what you want to understand. You can drink carrot and celery juice. I know Anthony William of the Medical Medium is really big on the celery juice, but indeed it can be beneficial, along with some carrot juice, to balance your bones. So now you know the myths, now you know the facts, now you know what to do, now you've been armed. If you need supplementation, you know what to do. If you have questions, you can call us or email us or text us or whatever you need to do. We're here to support you. If you know someone who has bone loss and has tried a bunch of stuff and doesn't know what to do, have them come in. We'll check them for infections and things like that. We'll figure out what's stressing them out, where the interference fields are, the injuries and stuff like that. That's our job. That's what we're experts in. So let us know if you have any questions about all this information. I know it's a lot. I tried to rattle off as fast as I could to not take your whole night away. So just let us know what you would like to have presented. Do your friends and family a favor. Share this with them so that they can be empowered to understand what bone loss really means and where it's really coming from, and so that they can demystify that, a glass of milk is not going to help them. It's only going to hurt them and things like that. And understand that there is a root cause behind your bone loss. And if it's not just junk food and you've taken your supplements and it's still not changing, then you need to try other things. You need to dig deeper, and that's what we're here for. All right, so we will keep bringing this information. I know Amelia has been after me for a couple weeks now, maybe 3, to talk about CBD oils. So cannabinoids, people start talking about marijuana, medical marijuana, but these are the fractions they take out of the cannabinoid, and they make an oil out of it, and it's supposed to be great for pain reduction, and apparently it's the hottest thing since sliced bread. I find it like an essential oil. It's very good at calming things down and masking things, but it's not fixing anything. So next week we'll be talking about CBD oils, so she'll be happy. All right? So we will see you guys next week for the Wednesday Wellness Minute, and let us know how we can serve you better with the next video. As we always ask, give a thumbs up, a thumbs down, comments, critiques, whatever you want. We're here to serve you and provide you with information. Whatever we can do that and however we can do that better, please let us know, and that's what we're here for. All right? We'll see you next week, guys.